Hello, everybody. My name is Gabriela de Queiroz. I'm a chief data scientist at IBM, working on AI strategy and innovation. And today I'll be talking about data science as a team sport. And if you want to connect with me, there is my Twitter handle in the presentation, also the link tree, which has a lot of different links that for my website and other social medias. So I've been working with IBM for the past 3.5 years, and now I'm leading this team on AI strategy and innovation. But I have done a lot of different work, and also I work with different organizations to foster an inclusivity community in tech. So one is the Our Ladies, the other one is AI Inclusive.
Gabriela, I'm going to jump in real quick. I'm getting a really weird feedback from your side. There's something.
Huh. Let me see here.
It sounds like paper shuffling.
Mike. Let me see, because maybe, no, do you think it's this,
It could be. Yeah, I think that might be.
Okay, let me try a different one. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Let's see if this one gets it. Okay, let's see if this one is better.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Better?
Yes, I don't have that. Does that work for you?
So that's perfect. Let me just make sure that I have everything set up for here. Yes, and yes. I just hope it doesn't disconnect, but I don't think we'll disconnect. Okay.
No, great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take myself back out, and then just go ahead and get started again whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Gabriela de Queiroz, and I'm a chief data scientist here at IBM California, working on AI strategy and innovation. Today, I'll be talking about data science as a team sport. But before I start, if you want to connect with me, there is my Twitter handle, and there is also a link tree, which gets you to different links, my website, other social medias, etc. I've been with IBM for about 3.5 years, but I'm also involved with different organizations to foster an inclusivity community. So I'm the founder of Our Ladies and AI Inclusive. And I always joke that even though I have a title, I don't consider myself only one thing. I'm not only a data scientist. I'm a data scientist, a developer, advocate, open source developer. I manage a team, so I'm a manager. I'm a statistician by training, epidemiologist, a community builder, mentor, speaker, educator, etc. And Our Ladies is such a big piece of who I am and the work that I've been doing. So Our Ladies was an organization that I founded in 2012 to promote diversity in our community via meetups and mentorship in a friendly and safe environment. And it started here in San Francisco, and now it's pretty much everywhere. We are in more than 200 cities, in more than 55 countries, with more than 90,000 members. So if you're not familiar about Our Ladies, which I would imagine that it's at this point you are, check out the website to learn more. And then the other organization that I'm part of is called AI Inclusive, which is the organization that I'm mostly involved right now, where our mission is to increase the representation and participation of minority groups in AI. So we don't have a language, it's more like language agnostic. And if you're interested in learning more, go to our website and our Twitter, Instagram. There is always something happening, events going on, scholarships, and other opportunities. But today I want to talk about data science and the data science career. We hear a lot about what you need to know to become a data scientist, what are the skills that you need. That in some companies you are going to be the only data scientist, in other companies you are going to have a team of not only data scientists, but different people with different backgrounds. And there is not a very clear definition of what data science is, because as I mentioned also, I think it's a combination of different skills. But I really like this cartoon where they talk about what is data science. So the first one is what my boss thinks data science is. So it's like a money printer where the data scientist is creating models and then bringing revenue to the company. And then the second piece is what my customers think data science is. So they think that data science is magic, that you are going to do something that's very magic and then you get an answer. And then soft engineers, they think that the data science is like we have this box where we are getting answers from the future, and it's a combination of math, statistics, machine learning, and a bunch of other things. And I really like this cartoon because it does reflect some of the way that people think about data science. And the way that I think that data science is also, like, as I mentioned, a combination. So as a data scientist, you can be in different areas in the company. You can also work in different areas. So, for example, you can work on the infrastructure side, or you can do more like the statistical modeling, or you can work on the more like soft engineering piece where, for example, you could be putting your models in production, or you'll be the person working on the data sources. But more than that, what we need to make sure that we as a data scientists and data science teams, we have all these different skills to have a successful team. So in summary, for me, a data scientist, all the data scientists, they should be very adaptable, and they are, and flexible professionals. As I was mentioning, you are going, depending on the company that you are going to be working for, you have different roles. So it's very important for you to be adaptable and flexible, right? And then I want to guide you through some of the examples of companies that I worked for where each company I had a different role. So as a data scientist, again, depending on the company, there is no like one size fits all. Depending on the company and depending on the team that you are in, you are going to have a very specific and different role from the previous company. So let me guide you through some of the companies and examples so you can get a sense of like how diverse, adaptable, and flexible the data science profession and professionals are. So several years ago, I was working for a company that later on got acquired by Tibico. It was called Alpine Data, and we had this software, data science software, this platform for big data. Big data was such a hot topic back then. Was when all we talked about was big data, Hadoop, and several other technologies. So we had this software where anyone could use the software, no matter if they were data scientists or business people or data analysts or anyone that had some idea of what they want to do with the data, they could use the software. The idea was you don't need to code to use the software. So you have kind of like this blank canvas where you were adding operators together and create a pipeline. So for example, one operator would be to get the data. The second operator would be to random sample the data and then create a task and train sample and then create a model. And then another one would be to see the score and so on. And that was very interesting because that company in particular, we had like several data scientists. So the company was about 40 employees. We had 10 engineers and 5 data scientists. So you can see the ratio. That's something that is also changes from company to company. In this one, we had a good ratio. We had like 40, 10 engineers and 5 data scientists. And the key responsibilities for the data scientists in that company, we had about like 4 or 5 responsibilities. So the first one was to be a consultant. So the company that buys our software, they would hire us to work on their project using our software. So we would be a consultant working on a very specific project. The other piece that we would do is write documentation. Because we had the software, we needed a documentation for our clients to use. So we would write from explaining the technical aspects of like the models, for example, to writing examples on how to use like real case examples on how to use the software. And then the other piece was about training customers on how to use the software and what are some of the models they could be using, some of the best practices. And then the fourth piece was about prioritization. Because we worked in the field with the customers, we knew exactly what the customers were looking for as the next feature. So we, as a data scientist, we would work with engineers and product people on prioritizing what are the features that should come in the next release. And interesting enough, in that company, the engineers were using 3 different tools like Spark, Scala, and Pig, Hadoop. But we as data scientists, we were not coding at all, because remember, the software, the idea of the software was you don't need to code to use the software. So we are not coding at all. So very, very different type of role as a data scientist. And as I mentioned, me as a data scientist, I was working with clients, with other data scientists, with engineers and product. Then the next company was something totally different. Was a company around advertisement. So we had this platform where we would sell and placements on pages. So we had different partners, and we had a lot of data, like petabytes of data coming in every day. And interesting enough, the company was bigger. We had 150 employees, 20 engineers, but only 1 data scientist. So I was the only data scientist in the company, which you would think that's kind of like weird, because you have so much data coming in, so many opportunities, and only 1 data scientist, right? So that company was very, very different from the previous one, where we were getting all this data, but we didn't have an infrastructure set up for the data scientists to go and use the data that they needed to create their insights, their models, and so on. So the first 6 months was all about creating this infrastructure, so then I could use the data to do something. And I had to work with engineers because they were the ones that knew the infrastructure. So I had to work very closely with the data engineers to create this pipeline, so then I could use the data. Then the second piece was around, once I had this pipeline, the second phase was for me to create models. So I create a few models that in the end got into production. And then also we did some kind of like A/B testing on models in production. And the last piece was around education, because remember, I was the only data scientist, so no one knew what I was doing. No one knew what kind of workflow the data scientist had, what kind of work I was doing. They didn't know what a data scientist was. So there was a lot of education on showing the company and the stakeholders the importance of having a data scientist. So that was the education piece one. And the other piece was, I made sure that my peers, they understood the work that I was doing. So we would get together during lunch and learn some of like data science techniques or workflow, so they could understand what I was doing. Also, because of that, they could help me on creating the things that I needed. And as you can see, a lot of tools were used in this company for me, by me as a data scientist. So I was using R when creating models offline. I was using Python, and then Spark. Was using RStudio, Jupyter, and Databricks, and MySQL. So several tools so I could do my work. Then I moved to a different company. And one thing to mention here is this was the most challenging, one of the most challenging positions that I had, because I was the only one. So I didn't have anyone to brainstorm with or to get, to bounce ideas off. I was the only person trying to solve different issues and problems that no one had solved before in the company. And I didn't have a team. So it was tough because I didn't have anyone to help me. So I had to make decisions by myself. I had to create the models by myself. I had to talk and talk also like a lot to understand the business, because the business was something that I never worked before, the whole advertisement industry. So the next company was also like something different. They were in the financial, more like in fintech. And the company, it was a credit card company where one of the ideas, and that was back in the days as well, the credit card was for international students. So which means that you didn't need to have a credit history to get this credit card. So you can get a credit card with a limit, like let's say 500, and then depending on your application, you would get another credit card with 1,000 of limit, and so on. So the differential here is like you didn't need a credit history to get a credit card. And the first population that they were focused on were the international students, right? So something like the domain was something that I didn't understand, but I thought that was very challenging, the type of data they were acquiring. And also I thought that was a great change for me as a data scientist to learn something else that I haven't done before. On that company, we were smaller. We had about 30, 35 employees. We had 7 engineers and 4 data scientists. So the ratio here, it's also very interesting because it's different from the other 2 companies, and we had a good team of data scientists. The other piece is, if you look at the tools, you're going to see that we were using R from end to end, from the infrastructure to models in production. So everything was set up using R. And that was a decision when the first data scientists joined the company, and they said, no, I want to use R from the beginning to the end. And as a data scientist in this company, we had also like several responsibilities. Again, infrastructure was a main one because we had different data sources, different data coming in, and we had to create a way to get all the data and store the data in a place where we all could use. And also we as a data scientist, we could surface this data for example, the marketing team or the CEO or the CFO. So the infrastructure was a big piece of the work that we did for several months. Another piece was around dashboards. So the CEO and all the stakeholders, they wanted a way to see how the company was doing, the health of the company in a easy way. They didn't want to open a spreadsheet and see the numbers. They want to see like in a dashboard, like with the main metrics that they were interested. So we had several R Shiny dashboards running that every morning they would open their laptops, go to the server, to this website, and see all the dashboards and the metrics that they were interested. The other piece that we did was to create our packages. All the data science, we were using kind of like the same framework, the same type of commands and functions in R. So we encapsulate a lot of these functions into our packages with documentation. So then we made sure that everybody was using the same framework, the same set of functions, and everything was reproducible. So we created our packages that we all use internally. And then the last piece was around models. And again, we were creating models running in real time and deployed in production, and all again using R. But as you can see, we, as a data scientist, we interacted also with different people in the company. We didn't work in silos. We worked with the CEO, trying to understand what they wanted to see, the CFO, the marketing people. We had several pipelines coming through the marketing folks. And then the data scientists would also work with other data scientists, as I mentioned previously. And then later, I moved to IBM, which was a huge change because I was used to working in small companies and small teams. And first, I joined an organization called Code, which everything that we did was open source, was freely available, and it was focused on data and AI technology. So we had a two-fold or like two different paths of work. So we would either and um, work on open source projects that were created by other foundations or organizations, and we would give back, contribute back to those projects. So TensorFlow, PyTorch, Apache Arrow, Apache Sparks, those were some of the projects that we would collaborate and work on every day. The other piece was we would also create open source projects to make it available to the public to use, to consume, to change. So these were the main two ways that we did work at Code. We had like several data scientists, software engineer, people from different backgrounds. And then this year I joined a different organization, more focused on the AI strategy, also like very different. I'll mention a bit in a second. So IBM is huge. So we have over 300,000 employees. I have no idea how many engineers. I have no idea how many data scientists are in the company. Pretty much a lot, I would say. But then my first team, we were using pretty much Python, Docker, OpenShift, and R. I was the only one actually using R. And there we had like several responsibilities. Me, not only as a data scientist, but once I became a manager, I was doing different type of work as well. So it's hard to it's hard to say what are the responsibilities because I had so many responsibilities during this time. But what I can tell you is that the team, we had the smaller team, but we had also the extended team that we worked with. So we as a data scientist, we were working with open source developers, we were working with developer advocates, we were working with researchers, with people in the AI ethics group. So we all collaborate within teams and in between teams, in different teams. So our work as a data scientist, as I mentioned, was very different. We were not like working on the data that we collected from customers as in the previous companies, but here we were creating tools for people to use on this more on the open source, and it's always thinking about how to create tools that are going to make people's work easier and make it more accessible through APIs or documentations and so on. Then I joined this other team, which is the team that I'm in now. And we have a very, very different set of skills, and also like different set of tools. And you can see, and you're probably wondering, like, you have like all these different tools here on the top. Are you as a data scientist using it? And I would say, no, we are not using those tools, but we do interact with people using those tools. So we do need to know a little bit so we can communicate with them. So that's the other piece around data scientists being flexible and adaptable, is that you don't need to know exactly what the other people in the team is doing, but you have to know enough to be able to communicate and talk to them. So we have people using JavaScript, React, and then Sketch, and then we use Python, OpenShift, IBM Cloud, Docker. And in this team, myself and other data scientists, we also have several responsibilities. It all depends on the project that we are working on. And the team is very diverse, as I mentioned. We work with front-end developers, with project manager, with back-end developer, with researchers, with UX designers, UI designers. So I would say that this team is one of the most diverse one that I worked with, and also that makes us able to communicate and talk. And then I say that data science, it requires a team of players in different positions. So as I mentioned, you have like all the different roles and techniques and places that you can be in a company, but also usually you should have a team of people with you. So you should not be the only person doing data science work. So you need people supporting you. It could be like a data engineer supporting your work. It can be a machine learning engineer also supporting your work or working with you, or depending on the work that you are doing, could be a front-end developer or a back-end developer. So it's usually not you by yourself doing everything, even though you can do different things, right? But you have to have a team with you to make sure that your work is going to be successful. And then let me go back to the skills for a data scientist, because we always talk and we get this, we get asked all the time about what are the skills that the data scientist should know. And even though I was showing that like all the skills that I and we acquire as we go through our journey, there are some skills that we all, it's kind of like the basic ones. Of course, remember, we don't need to know everything because we should have a team helping us, but there are some set of skills that we all should have. And I kind of like divide into a different type of skills, like the technical skills, which is like machine learning and the statistics and programming, which are more like technical. And even like programming, we also talk about, should I know what are the language that I should know? Should I know R? Should I know Python? Should I know SQL? I would say that SQL is the one that you are going to use across the companies. But then R or Python, it all depends on like which one you like better. You can try both and see which one you like better, and then stick with one. Like make sure that you are knowledgeable about one language, because it's always easier to migrate to one language that you know to the other language than just knowing basic of the both languages. And then statistics, machine learning, I would even say that think about what all the companies are using across. So all the companies are getting the data, so they are cleaning the data. So that's some of the skills that you should have. Not all the companies are doing deep learning or computer vision. So don't focus on that piece right now, unless you get a job that it's focused on that area. Then as you go through your job, you learn as you go. But don't make the assumption that you should know everything and all these new techniques, because not all the companies are there yet. The other set of skills that it's my it's my favorite ones, which I call, some people call soft skills, but I call essential skills. And in my opinion, they are as important than the technical skills. So the essential skills are communication. So you need to be able to communicate your results. You need to talk to the stakeholders. You need to communicate in a language that people can understand. Just 1 second. So communication, you need to talk to people in a language, in a way that they can understand. If you talk very technical, probably not everybody's going to understand what are you trying to say. So make sure that your communication is clear, that it's easy to understand, that you are translating very technical and hard topics in an easy way. The other piece is curiosity. Always ask why. Why am I doing this? Why is why is this result? Why am I getting these numbers? Why am I doing this? Keep asking the why, because just by asking why, you'll probably get several answers and thoughts that you didn't have before. The other piece is around flexibility, and I mentioned this throughout the talk. It's very important to be flexible, because depending on the company, depending on the team that you are going to be working with, you need a different set of skills. So it's important to be flexible, in terms of language. If you like one language or the other, but you have the flexibility to learn, to understand what the other language is doing. The other piece is around critical thinking, which goes very it goes together with curiosity. Have this critical thinking. It's important in your journey as well. The other piece that we are now talking more and more is around ethics. When you are creating something, think about, is this going to affect people's life? Is this going to affect underrepresented groups? Is there any bias on my data, on my models? Is there any implications? Should I be doing the things that I'm doing? Do I need to create this model or this application? So ethics is an important piece that we need to take in consideration when we are doing the work that we are doing. And the other piece that I really like to say, that be yourself, be who you are, and you bring to work a set of skills that no one else has, and you have unique things that it's very different from the other people. So don't try to be someone else, and try to be yourself. And so data science is a teamwork. So we have individuals with different set of skills, backgrounds, views, ideas, where they all support each other in this data science process. So we as a hiring manager, we as a data scientist, make sure that we have a diverse team, that we all have these different skills, different type of thinking, different points of view and ideas. This is what will make the data science work to be successful. And that's all that I had. So I want to thank you for watching this talk. And if you have any question, or if you want to get in touch, here are my contacts. And I hope to see you in Twitter. Thank you.